Hey, good morning. Bane French of Deevolution, and yes, I am doing yet another FATWOOD video. I'm in a different part of Montana, and it's a great time to be in the woods. It's cold, wolves are howling, the bucks are rutting. I'm not finding a lot of game though, because I keep looking for FATWOOD. And in my book, I outline 6 sequential steps that you can positively identify FATWOOD every time. So let's review some of that. In general, you're looking for a gray, characterless structure. Not a lot of vegetation can grow on this hydrocarbon-rich wood. It's solid in general, but not always. There's a solid report to percussion. And when you cut into it, it's got a chalky feel to it. The colors are there, the smell is there, and it's very combustible. So I'm hiking along and I noticed this piece and it looked worth checking out, but I noticed there's a lot of wiggle to it. It doesn't mean it's not FATWOOD. It just means that the FATWOOD doesn't extend down into the roots. Not a lot of vegetation, some lichen, but it's certainly got solid pieces. If you can see that, but that's some good stuff. The stranding, the colors, it's heavenly. And there's another dead giveaway. Look at that resin bleeding through on this side. It's a leaning piece. On the windward side, gray. And on the lee of this piece is where that resin bleeds out. You see this over and over. Now I've identified something else here. Might be a piece of FATWOOD that fell off it. Oops, right here. It's pretty heavy. Beautiful. So this was probably a piece of sapwood that fell off this same tree. Let's find some more. I had kind of a rough morning. I got a cramp in my leg getting out of my cot. It was powerful, painful. Then a piece of my glasses fell off, landed in a mud puddle and sunk right before my eyes. I'm sifting through this muddy water, froze my hand. Ran to my truck all panicked, trying to warm up. Spilled my coffee all over my phone, my binoculars. Just when all hope was lost, I start finding FATWOOD. Look at this beautiful piece. I removed all this oxidized grayish material on the outside to reveal that. Oh. What's that little guy? Small leaning piece, gray on that side, yellow on that side. That's an excellent piece there. Let's look at this stump over here. Gray, yellow, and there's a piece here that's also quite solid. Let's see. It's there. Look at that beautiful color. There is a feature of FATWOOD identification that I failed to mention, and that is orange flagging. When you see orange flagging, there is absolute certainty that you've got an excellent specimen. Now, I located this a year ago and wanted to mark it so I wouldn't lose it. Some moss on the bottom, not a lot elsewhere, gray on that side, and there's those yellows. Again, wiggly, but percuss is great. This whole heartwood piece you could just take with you. There's a lot of tinder, kindling, and fuel there. Here's a stump. I don't even see the tree remnant anymore. This is so old. And it's pretty much just a sapwood. The heartwood is not there for some reason. High quality stuff. Really nice gray structure here. That would probably harbor some good pieces. Got a couple interesting things to look at here. Here's a classic tortoise. FATWOOD spear, commonly heartwood, with the backdrop of a barky shell. You can actually see the yellow coming through on this piece. Sun's coming up, which is fortunate because rigor mortis was about to set in. But I think this is Holodiscus discolor, ocean spray. It's the only time I found it in Montana. There's several bushes in this bottom here. Brilliant white flowers in the spring, and those pieces, the ocean spray, are very flammable. It's great tinder. Here's two stumps that look favorable. This one in particular, you can see down at the bottom, yellow, and even black in places. Somebody cut into this for some reason. Very solid. And this is more yellow than it is amber or black, but really good stuff. Here too. A couple over here I want to show you too. A couple great pieces. Look at this giant tortoise. Really chalky. A regular piece of wood just won't light like this. If you can hear that crackle. Black smoke. The combustion test. The one that's needed the least, but is so much fun. I'm not sure this even shows up that well, which is the point I'm making. This little guy is so subtle, but could be so useful. Wobbly, pretty solid. Let's see. Clearly punky here. There it is. Here's a large fallen piece. Well, this hasn't been burned. But you see this black discoloration on the leaning side. Really solid. So this is really solid, but it's mostly yellow, so it's not going to show up as well. It's there. There you're starting to get some more amber down there, but with a good tool, there's just so much material here. Another old fallen piece that came off the top of that, I think, which we'll check out in a moment. I wanted to show you the color, the base of these limbs. Really dense. Now this thing, I'm not sure what we're going to find here. It's big. It's like 8 feet tall. There's no vegetation. There's discoloration on the leaning side. It's good. Certainly more dense material than this, but there's veins of fatwood through this whole structure. I was following a set of elk tracks in here the other day. I looked over, saw that. That resin stands out like a beacon. That's as bright as I've ever seen it. There, it starts to show up. Right there, solid. Oh my gosh. I had to get this one because it's a great example of what I've termed a cathedral. It's multiple pieces sticking up. Every one of those is usable. All right, stop me when you see it. Oh, right there, you missed it. Cathedral. Within the order Coniferalis, or conifer, there are very many species of trees that are capable of creating resinous wood. And in the book, I have a chapter on the taxonomy of resinous trees. I go through the families, the multiple genera, and some examples of species that are capable of yielding copious fatwood. Now, what I find most is lodgepole pine, ponderosa pine, the true firs like subalpine fir, grand fir, some spruce, larch. I find that with difficulty in those two. And then a lot in Douglas fir, which I'm suspecting this giant stump is from. Now, within a respective conifer member, there are multiple locations in that tree that are capable of yielding fatwood. Knots, very commonly, limb crotches, solitary baseball bat-like heartwood pieces. We've seen the fragmented cathedral sapwood, but also root wads and stumps. And this is the biggest that I have ever found. And I'm thinking it's Douglas fir because there are several large Doug fir here. Now, maybe this was an old growth tree that was subject to beetle infestation or just died of old age and had time to congregate all that resin down in its proximal section. Most of the stumps you'll find will have veins of fatwood or pieces within it. This whole thing, circumferentially, is solid fatwood. It's so dense, I can't even stick my axe in it. So I'm going to wafer off some pieces and we're going to start a fire with it. I've wafered off several pieces. You can process them down quite quickly. Here's a big piece that's separated pretty well. And get some thinner pieces this way. Now the heat source I have is a lighter. You can use any. If you're using a ferro rod, these little curls just need to be smaller. Perhaps like that. You want to keep this as dry as you can. The woods are soaked. We had a sleety storm come through, and now sun's coming out, and it's really wet. But that's part of the utility of fatwood, is that you can start a fire regardless of how inclement it is. You want to build your fire on a dry platform. You can almost always find pieces of bark that's dry on the underside. Now this will burn. We could time it for a long time, allowing you to go collect other wood. It'll burn hot enough and long enough that it will dry out other fuel. That's subpar because it's wet. Almost 2 minutes. Five minutes. It's been 10 minutes and it's starting to wane. But this was a small pile, wafers of fatwood on a narrow platform, untouched, has burned really well now for 10 minutes, in which time a lot of material could be gathered. I want to wrap this up. This will be the last one that I show you. This looks like just an average stump. I can't tell if it was cut or if it died on its own. But on closer inspection, there's still bark over here. So this was a much larger stump. And over here, I think is part of the sapwood. So this is a heartwood core, really solid. Well, there is wiggle, but it percusses super solid. Boomerang shaped piece involving the root. You can just see the yellow coming through. The colors are there. And of course the smell. Thanks for joining me. I hope you learned something. Until next time.